Hello, friends. Today, I want to talk about a document that every single person receiving Social Security needs to understand. Your Social Security earnings record, found inside your Social Security statement at ssa.gov. And I know what some of you are thinking. I've heard of this. I think I looked at it years ago when I was planning to retire. What's left to say? Hold on. Don't close this video, because I'm about to tell you something about this document that the Social Security Administration will never explain to you directly, and that most people, even people who have been retired for 10 or 15 years, have never heard. Stay until the end, because there's a specific time limit involved here that makes this more urgent than you'd expect. Before we get into it, subscribe to this channel right now and turn on the bell. This is exactly the kind of information I cover. Things buried in government systems that genuinely affect your monthly check and that nobody calls to explain. Subscribe now and let's get into it. Let's start with what this document actually is. The federal government maintains a permanent record under your Social Security number, officially called the Master Earnings File. Every year of your working life, starting with your very first job, your employer sent a W-2 to the IRS, and that data flowed into this file. It records your earnings year by year for your entire career. Your Social Security benefit is calculated directly from this file, specifically from your 35 highest earning years. Your statement is simply a printout of that file. Here's the question I want you to sit with for a second. If you are already receiving Social Security, even if you've been receiving it for years, why would you need to look at this now? The benefit was already calculated. The check arrives every month like clockwork. Why look backward? Because the file is not always correct, and an error in it doesn't just sit there harmlessly. It permanently reduces your monthly check whether you're still working or have been retired for over a decade. Here's a real example. A woman who had been retired for 8 years downloaded her statement out of curiosity. Scrolling through her earnings history, she found 3 consecutive years in the late 1990s showing 0. She knew she had worked full-time at a manufacturing company during exactly that period. What happened was straightforward. The company ran into financial trouble, mishandled its payroll reporting, and eventually went out of business. The data never made it into the SSA system. When her benefit was calculated, those 3 years were treated as if she earned nothing. She tracked down her old paper W-2 forms, submitted them to SSA, and the agency recalculated her benefit. Her monthly check went up by about $45 permanently, and she received a retroactive lump sum payment covering the years she'd been underpaid. Here's a second example. A man worked 2 jobs for several years, a primary job and an evening management position. His primary income was recorded correctly. The evening job's income was missing entirely. It turned out that employer had transposed 2 digits of his Social Security number on the tax forms. An honest clerical mistake that meant years of his income were sitting under someone else's record, or nowhere at all. He gathered his old tax returns, filed a correction request, and his benefit baseline went up permanently. So here's exactly what to look for. When you open your statement, you'll see a table organized by year. The column that matters most is your taxed Social Security earnings. Go through it year by year. If you see a year where you know you were working, but the number shows 0 or shows something dramatically lower than what you actually earned, that's a problem worth pursuing. Remember, your benefit is based on your 35 highest earning years. If a 0 gets plugged into one of those 35 years instead of your real income, your monthly check is permanently lower because of it. Now, here's the part that creates real urgency, the part most people genuinely don't know. Under federal law, the standard window to correct your earnings record is 3 years, 3 months, and 15 days from the end of the year the wages were paid. After that window closes, the law presumes SSA's record is correct, and the burden shifts more heavily onto you to prove otherwise. But, and this is important, that deadline is not the end of the road. SSA's own rules carve out major exceptions. If you have a W-2 or a filed tax return showing the correct amount, SSA can correct the record regardless of how long ago it was. The same applies if the error was caused by your employer failing to report properly, or by a clerical mistake, which covers most of the situations people actually run into. The honest summary is this: the sooner you check and correct an error, the easier the process. The longer you wait, the more documentation SSA may ask for. But having documentation in hand, even decades later, generally gets the job done. This is exactly why the smart move is not to wait. The longer those old W-2s and pay stubs sit in a box in your attic, the more likely they are to get lost, thrown out, or become unreadable. Check your record now, while you still have time to gather what you need without a fight. So, what do you actually do if you find an error? Step 1. Gather your proof. The strongest evidence is an original W-2. If you don't have it, old federal tax returns, Form 1040 plus schedule if you were self-employed, work too. Even old bank statements showing consistent deposits from that employer can help. Step 2. File Form SSA-708, the Request for Correction of Earnings Record. It's free, available at ssa.gov. List the years in question, attach your documentation, and submit it. SSA is required to review it. If approved, they update the master earnings file, recalculate your benefit, and adjust your monthly payment going forward, sometimes with a retroactive lump sum. As in the example earlier, what if the company you worked for no longer exists? Closed down, went bankrupt, the owner passed away. You still have options. You can request a certified transcript of your old tax returns directly from the IRS using Form 45506T. This is considered strong, ironclad proof of income, even with no employer left to confirm anything. If documents are completely gone, signed statements from former coworkers who can confirm you worked there during those years can support your case. And old union records, employment contracts, or even an old ID badge can help in an administrative appeal. One more thing. Specifically for anyone currently working or within a few years of retirement, don't wait until you file to look at this. Check your statement now and check it every year. If your current employer says they're reporting your wages, but last year shows up as 0 on ssa.gov, that's something you can walk into HR tomorrow while the company still exists and the people who made the mistake still work there. Finding that out 15 years from now, after the company is gone, is a much harder fight. And a note for anyone watching this with elderly parents or grandparents who aren't comfortable with computers, this is something you can do for them in 20 minutes. Sit down together, help them log into their ssa.gov account, and pull up their earnings history. Compare it against whatever old paperwork they have. Finding one missing year and getting it corrected could mean an extra $50 a month on a fixed income, for groceries, for prescriptions, for utilities. That's not a small thing. So here's the summary. Your Social Security benefit is calculated from your top 35 years of earnings on file with SSA, and that file can contain real errors, even decades old. Open your statement at ssa.gov and scan your taxed Social Security earnings year by year for zeros or numbers that look too low. The standard window to fix an error is 3 years, 3 months, and 15 days. But with a W-2 or tax return in hand, corrections are possible well beyond that. The sooner you check, the easier it is. File Form SSA-708 with your documentation if you find something wrong. And if the employer no longer exists, an IRS transcript via Form 45506T can do the job instead. Subscribe. Share this with someone you know who's on Social Security, especially if they've been retired for years and have never looked at this. And I'll see you in the next one. Understanding these nuances of the Social Security system is vital, especially when it comes to the long-term impact on your financial stability. Many people rely entirely on the information provided to them by government portals, assuming that the data is flawless. But the reality of administrative processing means that errors can and do occur. By taking the proactive step of reviewing your earnings record, you are essentially auditing your future and protecting the benefits that you have earned through years of hard labor. Consider the implications of just one missing year of high-income reporting. Given that Social Security benefits are calculated using an average of your 35 highest earning years, a single year of zero earnings, particularly during a period when you were at your peak salary, could drag down your lifetime benefit amount significantly. When multiplied by the number of years you might spend in retirement, this oversight could equate to thousands of dollars in lost income. This is not merely an administrative nuisance, it is a financial planning imperative. Furthermore, the process of correcting these errors, while daunting at first glance, is designed to be accessible to the average citizen. The requirement for proof, such as W-2s or tax returns, serves as a safeguard to ensure the integrity of the Social Security Trust Fund, but it also creates a roadmap for you to follow if your records are inaccurate. It is also worth noting that the digital transition has made this easier than ever. Years ago, one might have needed to visit a local Social Security field office in person to request records or initiate a correction. While in-person visits are still an option, and sometimes necessary for complex cases, the online tools provided by the Social Security Administration offer a level of transparency that was previously unavailable. We live in an age where information is power, and when it comes to your Social Security, the power to verify and correct your own record is a right, not a privilege. It is essential to remember that even if you have been retired for a decade, the window of opportunity to rectify these issues remains open, provided you have the supporting documentation. Never assume that the lack of communication from the Social Security Administration regarding an error means that your records are accurate. They rely on the information provided by employers and the IRS, and they do not proactively audit individual earnings histories to search for errors unless a discrepancy is flagged. You are the primary auditor of your own Social Security account. Encouraging your friends, family, and peers to perform this check is perhaps one of the most practical ways you can help them improve their financial well-being. It is a common misconception that Social Security is a static system that operates perfectly in the background. In reality, it is a massive, complex, and sometimes prone to error system that requires vigilance from its beneficiaries. By maintaining a copy of your tax returns and W-2s, you are not just keeping records for tax season, you are building a defense for your retirement security. Think of this as a permanent file that guards your future. Should you encounter difficulties navigating the website or filling out the necessary forms, remember that there are resources available, including local offices, and in some cases, professional financial planners or legal assistants if the discrepancy is substantial or involves a deceased employer. Do not let the complexity of the process deter you from seeking what you are rightfully owed. Every dollar counts, especially when you are on a fixed income, and the effort to correct these records is an investment with a high long-term yield. Stay informed, stay vigilant, and continue to prioritize the security of your financial future. Because at the end of the day, this is your money, your hard work, and your retirement. Don't let a clerical error define your quality of life in your golden years. Take control today. Verify your records and ensure that your Social Security statement reflects the truth of your working years. Thank you for taking the time to listen and for being an active participant in your own financial planning. Together, we can demystify these complex systems and ensure that everyone receives the benefits they have earned. Stay tuned for more deep dives into these critical topics and always keep an eye on your records.